Alright, my friends, you have seen me kill Designated Punching Bag the Oathbreaker Knight in a single round of combat, many times over at this point, but what if we kill him in a single action? Notice that we have almost no gear equipped, and only a single buff that lasts all day, the lightning aspect of Marka Heshkir, and we're going to take out the Oathbreaker Knight in a single spellcast. Let's go ahead and enter turn-based mode. And we're going to start by doing a quickened casting of Create Water. You can do this before combat starts, so it doesn't actually take any time during combat. The Oathbreaker Knight now has the Wet effect, and then with a level 6 Witch Bolt, we are going to zap the Oathbreaker Knight, activate Destructive Wrath and Luck of the Far Realms for an absolutely guaranteed 296 damage, ending him in a single spell. Alright, let's get to the build. Hello my friends, and welcome back to another Baldur's Gate 3 character building guide. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're covering one of the very strongest builds in Baldur's Gate 3. In my list of the best builds in the entire game for Honor Mode, I rated this as one of the absolute strongest, because it really does everything, and it does it better than just about every other character. Not only does this character bring incredible support and utility to the party, and not only does it also have some of the most powerful spellcasting out there, in addition to that, its core combo allows you to simply choose an enemy and wipe them off the face of the earth, or I suppose Faerun, with absolutely guaranteed damage. The ability to just blow up an enemy and know for certain, before you even roll a die, that they're going to die, cannot be overstated, because it gives you just absolute confidence in your ability to take a fight. And in addition to all of these powerful effects, this character is one of the very best at using some of the most powerful items in the game. So not only is it incredibly strong and, dare I say, quite broken in and of itself, it also allows you to maximize some of the strongest effects available to every party. So you really get benefits both coming and going with one of the best builds in and of itself, and also some of the most powerful effects in the game maximized to their fullest potential. This is an update video to one of my most popular videos on my channel, and for good reason, because this build received some changes in patch 7, and so I wanted to update it to reflect the ways that the build has changed in the most recent patch of Baldur's Gate, and also to bring the guide up to date for the modern era of Honor Mode. Before I begin, I do want to take a quick moment to say thank you so much to Potato Man for the $5 donation, Jason Lichtman for the extremely generous $50, Caesar Shadow Knight for the $10, Milcooney for the €20, and Rainbird for the $10, as well as Rainbird and Caesar Shadow Knight for also becoming channel members. Thank you so much, my friends. I really do appreciate the support, and it really does mean a lot. Alright, let's get to the build. I'm using Gale as the example character here, because of course he is the wizard of the party, and also what other character would want ultimate cosmic lightning power as the one-shot lightning lord more than Gale would, so it only makes sense. But if you're building this as a custom character, then I highly recommend playing it as a halfling. Basically, the only thing that can go wrong for this character is if you roll a natural 1 on your attack roll for your one-shot combo spell, and that can leave you having to spend additional resources on that combat, or it being out a high-level spell slot. So playing as a halfling who gets to reroll 1s has incredible synergy for this build, because it makes the only failure case exponentially less likely to occur. This build is incredibly safe to play, and that just doubles down on that, making it significantly safer. Also, of course, the normal standouts are still excellent. Dwergar's out-of-combat invisibility is always top tier. Wood Elf or Half Wood Elf for the bonus movement speed are, of course, great. And Githyanki has also pretty good synergy for this build because the additional skill access works very well. This build can be built as a skill monkey or party face to provide even more support, and Githyanki lets you gain access to even more skills and double down on that role as well. So all of those are great options in addition, but I really do think that Halfling is the strongest pick by far. Now, before I start leveling this character, I do think a quick disclaimer is in order, and that is that for most of my builds, I say, you can feel free to customize this character, move levels around, change things out for other things to fit a concept that you may have, and that is much less true for this character. The leveling order for this character and which levels you take are actually extremely important. This build is extensively tested both by myself and tens of thousands of other people, and if you reorder things, you do run the risk of breaking some aspects of the combo. So unless you're very familiar with how the character works, I highly recommend following the order given in the video to ensure that the character works as intended. We're going to start with a level of Sorcerer. The reason that we do this is that we want to take Wizard as our third level. I'll talk about that more in a second. So we want to take our other two classes first. And starting as a Sorcerer allows us to both have better skill access if we want to be the party's face character and use dialogue skills, and also gives us Constitution save proficiency. One of the things that this character brings to the table is incredibly powerful concentration spells. You get to Twin Haste, which is an incredible buff for any party, and have other powerful concentration spells running to support your party members and also power yourself up. So having Constitution save proficiency means that you won't lose concentration on those powerful concentration spells and can provide the maximum power to your party. We also get to take great utility spells early. So starting as Sorcerer gives us a lot of additional options. For our ability scores, we are, however, going to take a very unusual attribute split for Sorcerer. There are two different ability score options that we can use, and that will depend on whether we are going to have this character be our party face, and if so, we need to have the Gloves of Dexterity available and not need them for another party member, or if we don't want to use the Gloves of Dexterity on this character. I'm going to build this character assuming that you don't need the Gloves of Dexterity and you have another character doing conversation skills, but just be aware that this character can be built as the party face and take higher charisma than this, and then if you do that, you can have it do all of your dialogue as well. For this version of the character, we're going to take 8 charisma, and we're going to take 16 intelligence, because this character will actually be using its intelligence to cast spells rather than its charisma, 12 wisdom, 14 constitution, and 16 dexterity. We want the high dexterity because going first allows us to delete an enemy immediately as soon as combat starts, so we want high initiative, and this character will not be able to fit alert into your build until much later on, potentially. So we want as much initiative as we can get in the early game to make certain that we go early enough in combat to impact it. For our skill selection here, since this version of the character isn't the party face, it doesn't really matter what we select. We don't have access to any super important skills. But of course, if you are building the charisma-heavy version of the build, then you would want to make sure that you have persuasion and deception, because those are the most important dialogue skills. For our cantrips, because we took low charisma, we're going to only take cantrips that are utility for this as sorcerer cantrips, because we'll get any damaging cantrips that we want from our wizard level. So this lets us just take all the utility cantrips that we need access to right away, which is pretty helpful for any party to have all of these utility spells. We'll take Minor Illusion and Blade Ward. If this character gets stuck out in the middle of nowhere, Blade Ward can help keep you alive for a round while your allies come to your rescue. That shouldn't happen too often, but is pretty useful. And Minor Illusion, of course, can group enemies for your powerful AoE spells, pull enemies away from their allies before combat starts so you can blast them. And of course, this character can one-shot enemies, so you can do that without even triggering combat much of the time. Mage Hand is very good for this character as well, because the Mage Hand can throw bottles of water. And one thing that we will need to do is get our enemies wet, so fanfiction writers, get your typing fingers ready, and the Mage Hand can help us do that efficiently without spending spells or actions on doing so. Finally, we can just pick up another utility cantrip like Light, for example, because that will, of course, allow us to see what we're doing. For our spell selection, again, we're taking only utility spells at this level, ones that do not rely on our charisma, or ones that don't rely on hit rolls or save DCs. I recommend taking Magic Missile and Shield. We know we're going to want access to both of those spells, and they don't need us to have high charisma in order to be effective, so we can pick those up with our sorcerer levels right away. For our subclass here, we are going to take Storm Sorcery. This gives us a ton of mobility around the battlefield with tempestuous magic and is incredibly powerful, and will also give us access to a couple spells that will be useful later on down the line. Now, the Storm Sorcery spells will use our Charisma for their spell save DCs, so you generally won't be casting them offensively, but the bonuses from the Storm Sorcery passives are very good. You could also take a Draconic Sorcerer and take one of the Lightning Sorcerers for additional lightning damage, but I tend to prefer the mobility of Storm Sorcery on this build. It does give up like 3 points of damage on your combo, but the Storm Sorcery version of the build just has so much more utility and mobility. It's much safer and smoother to play. Alright, that is it for level 1. We've selected our spells and cantrips, done our ability scores, and chosen our class level, so let's move on to level 2. At character level 2, we are multi-classing, and we're going to multi-class into Cleric. Cleric not only gives us a ton of utility in the early game, it's also going to be core to our later game combo. For our cantrips on Cleric, again, with our relatively low wisdom, we don't want offensive cantrips. In the first 2 levels, by the way, you have 16 dexterity, so you can just fight by firing arrows from any bow that you have picked up. So don't worry about having to have combat cantrips for your first 2 levels. You'll still be able to fight reasonably well with your utility spells and a bow. And of course, we get to pick up even more utility for our party with guidance and resistance. One of the reasons this character can be such an effective party face, if you want to go that direction, is that you can take the Thaumaturgy cantrip as well to give yourself advantage on some charisma based effects that does allow you to succeed at dialogue more. If you're not the party face, it doesn't really matter what you pick here as your last cantrip, but guidance and resistance, of course, are excellent for any party. For our subclass, we're going to take Tempest Domain, which will, of course, give us some useful utility spells. Fog Cloud, in particular, is a very good utility, especially in the early game. It's a no-save blind, which is a powerful debuff. Since we're playing Gale, let's go ahead and take Mistra as our deity. And we can also get access to a couple more skills, which again allows this character to act as a party face with religion and insight as possible skills. But most importantly, we get to prepare a couple utility spells here. In the early game, the ones that you're going to be looking at most are Bless, Sanctuary, and Healing Word. Later on, of course, we're going to want Create Water for a combo. But in general, Bless and Healing Word will be extremely helpful in the early game to power up your party. This character actually will be able to be one of the best in the game at using the buff on heal items as well, because we'll be able to twin Healing Word to double apply them. So you can make your character a healing sub-theme and increase its give the character a healing sub-theme and increase the level of support it provides to your party as well. And then later on, you're going to swap to Sanctuary and Create Water because that is a great panic button and enables the combo. Then, at character level 3, we are multi-classing again, and we're going to take Wizard. We want to take Wizard as our 3rd level because of the way Baldur's Gate calculates save DCs from items. It uses the casting stat of your most recent newly acquired class, so the most recent class you took the 1st level in. So we need to take our other 2 classes before we take a Wizard level. It doesn't matter what order we level up in after this for our save DCs, but we need to take Wizard as our last new class in order to guarantee that we use our intelligence for our items and scrolls. And since this character's so good at casting spells from items and scrolls, we definitely want to make sure we're doing that. For our cantrips here, of course, we don't want to duplicate cantrips that we already have, but we do want to pick up some offensive power, so we can grab Ray of Frost and Firebolt, and might as well pick up Shocking Grasp. This is a lightning-based character. Ray of Frost and Firebolt together give you a bunch of utility, and Ray of Frost will be your main damage, but Shocking Grasp can get you out of bad situations by preventing enemy reactions. Generally speaking, though, you're just using Ray of Frost for most of your combat effects. Remember, the damage of this is doubled by enemies being wet, so it's an incredibly powerful damage source, even just as a cantrip. For our spells here, the most important spells to ensure that we have, of course, we want access to all the utility spells like Long Strider and Enhanced Leap, and we want good combat spells at this point. But we want to make certain that we have, and one of these is in the prepared spells because Gale has already learned it from a scroll in this save file. We want to make certain that we have Witch Bolt and Chromatic Orb from our wizard levels. These are going to be our main combat spells because they're our source of lightning damage that gets doubled by the wet condition and maximized by our Tempest Cleric levels, which is the source of our one-shot combo. So make sure that you take Witch Bolt and Chromatic Orb, whether from scrolls or whether from leveling up, and then also get powerful utility and combat spells like Grease and Ice Knife, Enhanced Leap, Long Strider. Of course, you can pick up as many spells as you can find from scrolls, so what scrolls you have found up to this point in the game will dictate a little bit what spells you actually select when you level up, so long as you make sure that you have Chromatic Orb and Witch Bolt available to the character. And, of course, because of how learning wizard spells from scrolls works in Baldur's Gate 3, you will also have access to second-level wizard spells at this point. Because we have 3 caster levels, Sorcerer, Cleric, and Wizard, all give us additional spell casting levels. And wizards can learn spells from scrolls based on their caster level, not their wizard level. So we'll be able to learn first and second level spells from scrolls, and we'll be able to power up our characters significantly as a result. Things like Scorching Ray and Cloud of Daggers are the most important ones to look out for, just any good spells. Any good second-level spells, but of course it's going to depend on what scrolls you've found up to this point in the game. At character level 4, we're going to take our second level of Cleric, which brings this character's core damage combo online. Now, that doesn't mean that the character hasn't already been extremely powerful. We're still just an excellent spellcaster up until this point. But now that we have Destructive Wrath, we can start one-shotting enemies very easily. Destructive Wrath lets us maximize lightning damage that we're doing, and then that lightning damage gets doubled by the wet condition. So with, for example, a Witch Bolt cast at level 2 with one of our level 2 spell slots that we have at this level, we do a d12 of damage per level. That gets maximized to 12 damage per level, or 24 damage. That gets doubled by the wet condition up to 48 guaranteed damage, and on a critical hit, which we may be able to enable with Luck of the Far Realms at this point, depending on how many Illithid tadpoles we've acquired, or just get lucky and critically hit, that gets doubled again to 96 damage. 96 damage, of course, is enough to one-shot almost any enemy that you're facing at this level, or put a serious dent in even the toughest of bosses. And even 48 guaranteed damage will kill most important enemies, or at least an important enemy from an encounter, allowing your very powerful spellcasting to reign supreme. Chromatic Orb at this level does the same 24 damage, doubled to 48. Critical hit doubles it again to 96. So at this level, it's even with Witch Bolt for single target damage. Witch Bolt will outscale it at later levels. But Chromatic Orb also can still be twinned. Witch Bolt, as of the last patch, can no longer be twinned at all. And so Chromatic Orb will be relevant when you're fighting multiple enemies, because you can use Twin Spell on it from our Sorcerer levels to one-shot 2 enemies at the same time. So both of those spells are very powerful to have access to, and let you just obliterate enemies in a single action. At character level 5, of course we want to be able to twin those Chromatic Orbs and one-shot 2 enemies at the same time, so we need to take our second Sorcerer level, so that we get access to more meta magic. This lets us trade our spell slots for sorcery points, which we can then spend on meta magic, and of course the meta magic that we're going to take is going to be Twin Spell. I also recommend Distant Spell, because for only a single sorcery point, this can let you use your combo from far away, so if there's an enemy that you're not sure you're going to be able to fight, you can take them on from outside of their range, and then they won't be able to retaliate very easily. A 90-foot range on your spells is enough to get out of range of almost any melee enemy in the game. They just won't be able to reach you, so you'll get 2 turns to fight them if you use Distant Spell. An alternative is to use Extended Spell. If you're using more of the powerful control spells available to this character, then Extended Spell can increase their duration. 6 turns of Hypnotic Pattern will win any encounter by itself, obviously. Extended Spell is also a great option. I tend to slightly favor Distant Spell, but either of those are reasonable picks. Again, what spells we actually select at this level, we're looking for utility spells that don't require us to roll dice using our charisma to get the most benefit out of them. So just anything that doesn't have an associated saving throw or die roll. At this stage, we can grab from our sorcerer levels. Character level 6. We're going to take our third sorcerer level because we want to gain more sorcery points and also get access to higher level sorcerer metamagic for Quicken Spell. Quicken Spell lets us do the combo twice in one turn, and of course also cast all of the other powerful sorcerer spells more than once. Quicken create water so that we can set up our combo for ourselves rather than having to have an ally throw water or a mage hand throw a bottle of water. Quicken Spell is just very powerful for this character, obviously. Again, just to reiterate how much damage we're doing at this point, with a third level spell slot, which we now have access to, a Witch Bolt does 36 base damage. That gets doubled by the wet condition to 72, doubled by a critical hit to 144 damage. If you do that twice in one turn with Quicken Spell, which you can do, that's 288 damage guaranteed in a single round. Now, the second one isn't guaranteed to be a critical, so you probably are only going to get 72 damage less than that, but still that's going to be more than 200 damage in a single round at level 6, and with very, very little chance of anything going wrong. So if you really want an enemy dead and don't mind spending some resources on it, this character can definitely make that happen. Again, for our spell selection here, we're looking for utility spells, so you can take things like Misty Step, Enhance Ability, whatever you haven't found from your wizard scrolls, but also any utility spells that you grab from Sorcerer are ones you don't have to prepare with your wizard spell slots. And this character with relatively low wizard levels, we don't have that many actual levels in wizard, your wizard spells prepared are a somewhat limited resource, so you want to have your utility spells available from your sorcerer levels so that you can save your wizard spell slots for your offensive spells that you're going to need. So we're going to grab stuff like Misty Step, Enhance Ability, Invisibility, all of the utility spells that you want from our sorcerer levels. At character level 7, we actually have a choice at this point between taking a 4th sorcerer level for an additional feat or taking our 2nd wizard level now. I'm going to recommend taking the sorcerer level at this point because at this point 16 intelligence is starting to strain our spells prepared list because we want to have higher level spells prepared, and also because 16 intelligence is on the low end for being able to actually hit our shots at this point. Now, since we only have to land one attack per combat, we can usually hide before combat starts to guarantee attacking with advantage, so it's not as bad as it might seem to have 16 intelligence this late into the game, but boosting that to 18 will definitely help us out here. So we can take an ability improvement to go up to 18 intelligence, and this also lets us get the all-important True Strike, which not only annoys people in the YouTube comments, but actually is kind of good for this character. It actually helps this character out quite a bit, and maybe even you want to take it earlier. It's possible that you want to take True Strike over something like Shocking Grasp at lower levels, because if you are in a combat where you can't hide, True Strike can give you advantage on the attack, and you only need to land one attack to end combats. So having access to True Strike for this character is actually kind of useful for compared to most characters. Again, we're going to grab a utility spell, anything that lets us take some strain off of our wizard spells prepared list, and because we're level 7, we now have 4th level spell slots, so 4th level wizard spells, and higher level witch bolts and chromatic orbs. Then, at character level 8, we're going to go ahead and take our 5th sorcerer level, and the reason for this, we do want a 2nd wizard level. I'll talk about that in a second, but the reason that we want our 5th sorcerer level is that around level 8 is when you start facing really dangerous spells from enemies, and so we want to take our 5th sorcerer level so that we can grab counterspell from our levels in sorcerer. There are no scrolls of counterspell in the game, so you have to learn it by actually leveling up and learning the spell. So grabbing that at this point is very important. If you already have other characters with counterspell, you could take your 2nd wizard level at level 8 rather than your 5th sorcerer level, and that can accelerate your access to Divination Wizard. But if you don't, then you definitely need Counterspell by this point in the game, so I recommend taking level 5 Sorcerer so that you can pick that up as quickly as possible. At our next level, though, we're going to take our second Wizard level, because that lets us take a Wizard subclass, and we can take Divination Wizard. Again, the only thing that can go wrong for this character is if you roll natural 1s on your hit chance. Portent just guarantees that you're going to hit enemies that you need to hit with your spells. So this gives us twice per day, we can just land the attack guaranteed using Portent dice. Now, one weird interaction is that if you were going to miss your attack and you change it to a hit with Portent, you can't use Luck of the Far Realms on that same attack, so you won't be able to guarantee a critical hit when you use Portent dice, but this still just makes you so much more consistent at landing your combo that Divination Wizard is excellent for this character. Of course, it also helps you defend your party and help your party members land attacks or make important saving throws or whatever, because Divination Wizard is just one of the most powerful tools in the game. This character gets to make use of it very well. What spells we take here, of course, doesn't really matter. These are low-level wizard spells, and we already have all the wizard spells we want from scrolls. At level 10, we're going to take our 6th Sorcerer level, and we're just continuing to level in Sorcerer because it gives us more utility spells. Things like Gust of Wind and Sleet Storm from Tempest Sorcerer are still very useful to have, and of course we learn Create Water here, so now we don't have to prepare it as a Cleric spell, because we just know it from our Sorcerer levels. Saves a Cleric prepared spell, and also gives us Heart of the Storm to do a little bit of extra lightning damage, and resistance to lightning and thunder damage, which is pretty relevant in the late game. Mostly, though, we're leveling in Sorcerer just for more meta magic points, more sorcery points. So that just lets the character act longer by having more sorcery points so we can twin or quicken spells. Spell selection here, if we definitely want to make sure that we have haste. Twinned haste is one of the things that this character does very well. Up until this point, we've probably been using one of our wizard spells slots on it, because haste is just that good. But now that we can learn it as a sorcerer spell, we can save that wizard spell prepared slot for something else. At character level 11, we are going to continue to level sorcerer, just to increase our sorcery points. For our spell selection here, again, utility spells, things like Greater Invisibility are very useful. Just avoid spells, or Dimension Door, just avoid spells that have saving throws or require a roll to hit, because our charisma is very low. And then finally, at character level 12, we get our second feat. If you are finding that you are not missing your attacks at all, you can spend this feat on something like Alert to let you move some initiative gear to another character, or guarantee that you go before even the fastest enemies in the game. Elemental Adept can let you ignore resistance to lightning, but there are very few enemies that actually have pierceable resistance to lightning in that game. But Elemental Adept for lightning does give you the ability to avoid rolling 1s, which of course is very helpful. So if you aren't missing your attacks, then I would recommend Elemental Adept or Alert. If you are still finding that you sometimes miss, then of course you can just boost your intelligence up to 20. Probably you're just going to use hit chance gear, and go ahead and take Elemental Adept to grab Lightning Elemental Adept, and just make the character a little bit more reliable in that way. So all of these things work together to just make sure that you can never fail, and that's the only thing that we're worried about. The thing we're doing is so powerful that if it works, we always win every combat. I mean, with a level 6 spell slot, and then a quickened level 5 spell slot, we are doing over, almost 600 damage in a single round of combat guaranteed. So that is enough to kill all but the very, very strongest enemies in the game in a single shot, and it gets those enemies down to like 10%, and then you kill them with an attack or another hasted spell or something. So all we want to do is just make sure that we are as reliable as possible and remove the failure chance from this character entirely. All right, that is The one-shot Lightning Lord, this character provides incredible spellcasting power, incredible utility, and of course blows enemies up, but it also is going to be one of the best characters in the game to use some of the best items in the game. So let's go ahead and talk about itemization. For items for this character, there are not a ton that you need specifically, but you do get to make the absolute best use of some of the most powerful items in the game. And one of the absolutely most powerful items in the game, you are the best user in the game for, and that is Marka Heshkir. Marka Heshkir is the endgame staff for wizards, and you're the best at using it, because not only does it give you an extra level 6 spell slot, which in this case is just one extra enemy absolutely obliterated, it also increases all of your lightning damage, and remember that we're maximizing and doubling our lightning damage, gives us additional spell save DC and spell attack, which all we have to do is hit our attacks in order to win, and lets us cast Chain Lightning once per short rest. Important to note that while they did fix the bug that allowed you to twin cast Witch Bolt, so you can no longer twin Witch Bolt on multiple enemies and have to use Chromatic Orb instead to shoot multiple enemies at once, they didn't fix the bug where you can twin cast Chain Lightning if you cast it from Marka Heshkir. So normal Chain Lightning you can't twin, but Marka Heshkir's Chain Lightning you can. You can see we get 2 targets here. So that allows us to double cast Chain Lightning every short rest when we're using Marka Heshkir. And of course, our lightning damage is insane, so we just obliterate entire encounters with that effect. Other than that specific item, for gear for this character in the early game, I recommend using the buff on heal items for this character. You can twin cast Healing Word and are just a solid healer overall. And so you can help buff up your party with items like the Hellrider's Pride and the Whispering Promise. And then in the late game, there's really 3 categories of item that we are looking for. Anything that increases our hit chance, and hit chance with spells and spell save DC, we want to increase. So items like the Robe of the Weave and Marka Heshkir are very important. Items that increase our initiative are excellent, like the Fistbreaker Helm, for example. And remember that because we're a Tempest Cleric, we have access to heavy armor and shield proficiency, so this character can actually be quite tanky. If you're wearing good mid-game armors include the Adamantine Splint and the Dwarven Splint Mail, and then of course you can wear a shield. You have a pretty decent armor class, so even despite your relatively low hit points, you're reasonably tanky and hard to kill. Then of course in the late game you probably want to transition back to the Robe of the Weave, use mage armor to stay at high armor class. But for the early and mid-game, you are able to be quite defensively geared. The Gloves of Dexterity are very good on this character. They let you move these points from Dexterity into Charisma to give yourself dialogue skills. So if you want this character to be your party face, then you can do that using the Gloves of Dexterity. They also give you bonus to your attack rolls, which is very important for landing your shots. And bonuses to your critical hit chance are also extremely valuable for this character because while we can use ways to guarantee criticals, like the Killer's Sweetheart Ring and the Illithid Power Luck of the Far Realms, increased chance of critical hits also allows us to do double damage with our lightning powers without even having to spend those resources if we roll well on critical hits. So you can equip something like the Deadshot, which just increases your chance of critically hitting, in your bow slot, a slot that you don't really use overall, in order to maximize the power of this character by increasing the chance of critical hits. So to sum up, in the early game, heavy armor and shields to stay tanky, and then in the late game, just anything that increases your hit chance, spell save DC, and initiative in order to guarantee that you go before enemies. And then of course you use Marka Heshkir to just obliterate big groups of enemies. In combat, also, for combat strategy for this character, remember that you are a fully functional wizard. We have 6-level wizard spell slots, and we can learn, we have full spell casting, we can learn basically every spell in the game from scrolls. So keep an eye out for lightning spells, like Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning, as well as the most powerful wizard spells in the game to make sure that you can win fights with them, like Globe of Invulnerability is very important. Overall, you are an extremely potent spellcaster. If there are enemies that you can't kill with your lightning combo, then you can twin cast Haste, to let your party members take care of it very, very easily. So you always have options because you're just a fully functional wizard. You're not reliant on the combo. A question I get a lot about this character actually is, doesn't it work only like once per long rest because you have to spend your level 6 spell slot? And the answer is no, it's actually got more longevity than other spellcasters because you do all the things that they do. So you always have the option to take fights normally. But any fight where it's better to just kill the enemy in a single shot, you also have that option. So you always have the ability to take the least resource-intensive option for any given fight and make use of that. Finally, for Illithid powers for this character, the most important one is Luck of the Far Realms. I do recommend that this character be your Illithid powers user. You're one of the best in the game at doing that. And if you get favorable beginnings to guarantee that you hit your shots, remember that the first attack roll that you're making is almost certainly the last attack roll you're making against a given enemy, because they'll be dead afterwards, so favorable beginnings is just a huge bonus. And Luck of the Far Realms lets you guarantee critical hits to obliterate enemies immediately. Alright, my friends, I hope that you've enjoyed this look at the one-shot Lightning Lord. Still an amazing character, and definitely worth a spin in Honor Mode. I guarantee it will make your Honor Mode runs go smoother, because you won't have to face a lot of the most dangerous enemies in the game. And if you have enjoyed the video, then please feel free to leave a comment and hit like. Helps me out a ton with the algorithm. And of course you can subscribe to my channel for more Baldur's Gate 3 builds and other strategy game analysis. Cheers, my friends. I'll catch you next time.